All right. I've got 6 o'clock on my computer screen here, so in the interest of everybody's time, we'll get started. Good evening and thanks for joining us for the first of three lecture series on AI. My name is Jerry Rosted. I am the director of special projects at Valley City State University, and one of the things that I've been helping VCSU do is get their AI Institute for Teaching and Learning stood up. And so we've been working on AI since in earnest prior to that, but certainly more so now after the AI Institute was stood up. This lecture series is brought to you in collaboration with Edutech or TechND of North Dakota. I'm going to introduce Tony Ambrose, who's the president of TechND, in a minute. Just want to remind you that, as I said, this is the first of a three-part series on exploring how AI or artificial intelligence is transforming education, workplace, and our community. Next Monday night, right here, we'll have the second of the three installments. And this one will be entitled AI and Education. We have three guest speakers that will be here next week to talk about how they're using AI in the education setting. We have a school administrator, we have a school instructor, and we also have a student that at Valley City State who has created a very interesting spelling practicum for third grade students. So make sure you want to come back for that. And then finally, 2 weeks from tonight, we'll be back on for the final installment, and this one will focus on AI in the workforce. I'll kick it off with some present data on AI's impact on the workforce trends and job roles. And then we'll have a couple of people from the community talk about how they're using AI in the workplace already. So three very good sessions here. I hope you enjoy them and tune in for all three of them. So with that, I want to kick it off for some opening remarks from Tony Ambrose. He's the president of TechND, and they're collaborating with us on this lecture series. So Tony, welcome to our event.
Awesome. Thank you, Jerry. And thank you, everybody, for attending. TechND is really happy to partner up with you all on this event and make this part of our Tech Talk series. TechND is an association of businesses across North Dakota, both in the private sector. We have state representatives and education representatives as well. Our goal is really three-pronged. The first is to advocate for favorable policy regarding technology. And technology in this case is not just ones and zeros and semicolons and curly braces. So it's okay if that's what you're here for. But if not, I would make the argument that there's not a business in North Dakota that's operating right now that doesn't have something to do with tech. We're here for you. The second prong is to help connect. And for us, that means connecting not only our members with each other, but also folks that are looking for tech roles with tech companies and companies that are in that space. And also looking to connect our public and private sector around technology. And then the third prong is to educate. And so part of our education mission, we sponsor routine tech talks, of which this is one. And those talks are on anything from AI to crypto to, hey, let's just take a look at our technical debt in our organizations and figure out what that looks like. Really anything related to tech and how it's working in North Dakota. So you didn't come here to hear me talk. I just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity and tell you a little bit about TechND. I'm going to drop our website into the chat. If you're looking to learn more, please chat with me afterwards, or certainly just hit the link and we'll talk to you later. Thank you, Jerry.
All right, thank you, Tony. Appreciate it. Our speaker tonight she'll have the whole hour. VCSU STEM professor Lisa Crumwhitey. She's going to lead this plain language session, if you will, to talk us through understanding what AI is, how it's being used, where the real opportunities and risks lie. She's going to explore key ethical considerations, data privacy and security concerns, and responsible use of AI. And with that, I'll turn it over to Lisa. I'll monitor the chat window. If anybody has any questions, if they want to throw them up on the chat, I'll monitor them and I can help guide the conversation there. I think Lisa's open for conversation. The only thing I'm not sure of how well it'll work is to interchange between audio and any technical issues. But if you have a question, at least start with the chat and we'll get you going into the full-on conversation. So with that, I'll turn it over to Lisa, and welcome to the show tonight, Lisa.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. Okay, I'm going to share my screen and just maybe give me some confirmation if we can all see it. Good to go?
Yep.
Okay. I sit in Teams meetings all the time, and normally I'm a lot more of a listener. So this is a little bit different of a world for me. But so just like Jerry said, my name's Lisa Crumwhitey. I am an associate professor at Valley City State in the Technology and STEM Education Department. I'm actually a former second grade teacher in West Fargo, and I got my master's at VCSU about 10 years ago, and then have been at VCSU about the last 7 years. So before I get started, just a little bit more about my background. To full disclosure, I think anybody who understands about AI realizes how impossible it is. That's almost that Dunning-Kruger effect, where the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. And so I feel like the more I learn about this, the more I feel inept at times to speak too much to it, because even as Jerry was kind of laying out what we're to share today, there's just so much to it that I hope I can answer as many questions as I can and give you all, share with you a little bit of my knowledge on this, but I'm always happy to do further research and whatnot. So I'm really, really interested in AI and have been having so much fun learning about it and exploring all the different viewpoints. So if there's something I can't answer, please know that I'm happy to continue the discussion after this to help us find some more answers. Okay, so I'm just going to go through a few things, and let's see if there we go. So I'm in very teacher form, want to really just show us what we're going to hopefully accomplish today. And at the end of our discussion today, hopefully we can all explain what artificial intelligence is and is not, and in simple terms, and then describe how AI tools, particularly large language models, work at a basic level, identify real-world applications of AI, education, workplace, our daily life, and recognize the opportunities and risks of AI, privacy bias, accuracy, and responsible usage. The difficult part, even beginning here, is there's probably, I'm sure in just this room, there's 30 some people in here right now, and there, I'm certain, are really varying degrees of comfortability with this. So I truly will do my best to try and meet us all where we're at, and feel free to ask questions along the way. So just take a second here. And I sit in a lot of rooms, and I'm probably almost always the first one to bring up AI. And I had this very conversation today with a bunch of college students at NDSU and Intro to Education, and kind of asked them, what comes to your mind when you hear AI? And it was really interesting to hear the varying responses of it. And I did actually use AI for a lot of my images. I have never put my actual photo into it, but I've told it a little bit about, like, make her hair a little longer. And then I've been telling it. So this one I said, make me scared and terrified of AI taking over. And this is what it came up with. But so I'm sure in this room there's a variety of feelings. If we're feeling excited, curious, overwhelmed, skeptical, terrified, I think I try to I'm an optimist when it comes to AI, so I'm really excited about it. But I also think it's really important that we hear all the different viewpoints of who might be feeling nervous about it and skeptical, and understanding that, so we can clear up those confusions and have those discussions, because that's definitely how we'll move forward together. So I'm excited. If anybody, I mean, I don't know if we even dare start raising hands or anything, but if you guys would like to, I'd be happy to. I'd love to hear if anybody's really excited. Do you want to raise your hand? Do you know how to raise your hand on the Teams? All right, that's pretty good. Is there anybody who is terrified? Yep. I think I am too. And anybody who's overwhelmed with it. I am big time. I'm working on a potentially preparing a dissertation at NDSU using some personalized AI agents. And the more I read, the more I forget what I'm supposed to actually be researching at times. So, okay. So my goal here is let's explore some of the basics, make it practical and understandable, give you some actionable items to consider, and all right, good. And hopefully leaving feeling more confident and comfortable, because I think that helps with erasing some of that nervousness and fear around it. So one thing I have really found interesting over my journey with this is really how AI feels really, really new to us right now because it's so accessible, but it really is not a brand new technology. And so I did a little research on kind of when it started, and it actually, the idea of how machines operate and using machines thinking it started in the 50s, and we really kind of stalled out once we had the 50s, or between the 50s and 2000s. We didn't do a lot with it, where as far as where it became really noticeable in our lives. And it was a lot more of programming the machines like an if this happens, then it could do this. But it wasn't predictive, and it couldn't be personalized the way it can be now. And then by the time the 2010s came around, Siri and Alexa became a lot more popular. And I still even I would bet even to this day there are many people who aren't realizing that is artificial intelligence, and some who say, I never use it, I'll never use it. And I don't even know if we have an option not to use it, to be quite honest. And even just little things about, I was watching a Netflix documentary the other night, and how then you can hit more options like this, and it'll start to give me all the recommendations of shows that think I will like, which is why I don't like when my kids go on my profile, because then they get my algorithm all mixed up. They think I want to watch Henry Danger or something. And then up to now, 2020s, we generative AI has completely right it exploded. And even I bet even I think fall of 2024 school year, so not even full 2 years ago, I remember it being we really started talking about it. And it really, if you stop and think about that, in less than 2 school years, how this has completely changed our world. And I'm not sure, all the different varying roles in here, but I bet if everyone just stopped for a second and think about that, how this has changed, it's really kind of mind blowing. And and even not just for the large language models, but even just like the image generations, on how so many, I mean, the Chat GPT, the new models coming out constantly of all the different updates. And really just now, I think, especially this school year, I've noticed just anecdotally, really rapid adoption amongst just users of more the general population. And then the future, I mean, it's going to be so interesting I think where we go from here. But I there's going to be a lot more. It just really personalized everything. Everything seems like it can be personalized, which I don't know if that's good or bad, but it certainly seems like it's coming. And the focus on human and AI collaboration. So not even just AI as a tool all the time, but just you collaborate with it to achieve your goals. Okay, so why does this matter? It's moving so quick, it feels overwhelming. Uh, there are some people, if you stop and talk to them about it, that might not think it's really impacting them. They say, I don't really notice it that much in my job. And sometimes when people say that, I ask them what they do, and then I want to go by myself and research what it is to see how it is impacting, because I think it's it really is going to be impacting everybody. Our school, I mean, I'm an educator, so I think about school constantly, but I have a hard time wrapping my mind around what could even be happening 5 years from now in our schools. And, and it's an exciting way. I don't ever want to make this sound scary at all. So hopefully that comes off as I'm excited about it. And then also just the really important part is the more we can have these discussions and help as many people in our state understand this, it can show how AI can help create opportunities and also make us all more responsible users, which then alleviates some of that worry. Okay, so thinking in your head, true or false, AI can think like a human, AI will replace more jobs soon, and AI is always accurate. And some have had lots of experiences, I would imagine, and others maybe not quite so many. But we'll go to the next slide and just say all of this is false. Yeah, everything is false here. So AI does not think. And I was actually, I have a college age niece that I was having conversation with about how many how in one of her classes in college, she was taking a AI and music business or something class, and she lives in Nashville, and was talking about how in her class she was learning about people using this to have all these conversations about their emotions and whatnot, and how important it is to remind that we're learning that AI is not thinking, it's predicting. So it's not having this emotional conversation if that's what others are thinking. So yeah, someone's in there, it seems kind of dangerous or is dangerous. And that's something, one of the many things that need to be addressed. But just to get it, it's not thinking, it's predicting. And we'll get into that a little bit more. And then jobs are changing and they're rather than disappearing. So even, there's always, throughout the course of life, there's all these different changes in industries that people will get nervous. Are these jobs going to go away? We're not, this degree is not going to be even necessary anymore. And if anything, as humans, we're so adaptable and we can change things, evolve, and come out better afterwards. And so if anything, it's more opportunity to have more highly skilled people. And I'm sure Jerry will talk more about this in his session, but he had talked about that too, and how it actually can be a great thing where maybe we can be eliminating some of these menial tasks and allowing younger professionals to engage in really exciting projects because the AI can complete some of those other tasks that don't require as much thought. And then if I hope you've all had some experience with this, I've had several recently of where AI can be very confidently wrong. And if you aren't thinking critically, you will just be spreading this information also. And this is something, again, today I had a conversation. So I was at Intro to Education at NDSU, and I was just doing a STEM discussion with them. So I'm not their instructor in that class. And they had an assignment due on Bloom's taxonomy. And this was something I had discussed in a different research class that I was a student in, and how, if you're familiar with the taxonomy, the bottom is just that basic recall of kind of learning some of those memorization, learning the vocabulary, labeling parts of the body or whatever it might be. And that's the easiest stuff to kind of cheat with an AI, and the harder stuff to detect if there's cheating, because it is kind of this black and white. However, the big issue is if someone who's learning new concepts are cheating those ways, or submitting this work as their own, and they're not learning those skills proficiently, then they can't and critically analyze those outputs when they come out, because they don't know what's wrong. And so that's why it's probably one of the scary parts of it is we want to make sure that we're not skipping those it seems like we might not need to know those things, but we do. We need to know them probably more than ever now. So when we see that output, I think, no, that doesn't look right and can, verify. Okay. And yeah, if anybody has any good stories of some confidently wrong AIs, please drop them in there because they can be really, really funny. It's just good reminders. So, okay, so what is it? How does this work? AI, the large language models they're systems trained on massive amounts of data to recognize patterns and generate responses. The interesting part of it is they're getting information from websites, scholarly journals, articles, anywhere they can get information, and it's not using it to now think up, I have all this information, I'm going to think of all this, synthesize it and give you the best. It's just predicting, it's using the patterns of the language to then predict what would come next. So for example, in our mind, we hear peanut butter and blank jelly. That's where the pattern, that's, really simple terms. That's more so how it's working. Which still, actually, I have a hard time comprehending how it works that way, but I've read it over and over. I can explain it a little bit, but really envisioning in my head how it's pulling this and spitting it out. It's hard for me to imagine how that's even possible. And at the rate it can do it. Sorry, I guess I got ahead of myself. But so it's determining, it's all on probability. So given these words, what's most likely to come next? Okay. One piece that's really interesting is the human trainers, and this is something I think it falls here, and it also falls, I think, also in maybe ethical considerations as well. Is so a lot of companies, whether it's these open AI or even just private companies who have their own embedded AIs within their, whatever it's their company interface, however it works, they're hiring human trainers to then review these responses, rank the quality, and then try to, with the intention of improving the safety and accuracy. And this can be up for debate on if it's a good thing or bad thing. And I guess I'll reiterate today that I'm not here to share any of my specific beliefs on this, more so just give the information and let everyone make their own educated decisions. But it's just an interesting concept because it does humanize it, which in theory, that's a really great thing, so that humans have a say in it. And then there's also the fear of there can be your personal bias and inaccurate, just human error and those types of things. So I've noticed too, sometimes I'll ask it a question, and maybe you have too, or maybe you'll notice it down the road, is then it'll give me two answers, and then it'll say, which one did you like better? And then, so I'm guessing I would imagine they're using that to help with how either it's how I want it to respond, or everyone who's just adding it to the data they have. There's a lot. So the amount of LLMs out there are plentiful. Some of the tops, Copilot, ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude. Are there any others that anyone's using a lot that I've just, there's so many, but I kind of use the same ones often, but I do make myself go and use others just to practice. If I'm missing any of them. Okay. Something else, I'm sure in other industries there's similar concepts, but in education, I'm sure many are familiar with different tools like Magic School and EduCafe, that they're kind of building their own, that then you can, it's built to be just specific for education, so it has a stronger understanding. So they're building that model based off of educational information, and so those are kind of getting to become more popular. And I'm here, oh yeah, Notebook LM, that's a really good example of one. Yes, how did I forget that one? I actually even uploaded, I have to read research every week, and I uploaded all the research I had to read for a week. And then when I live in Fargo, so when I drive to Valley City, I can have it read it to me, which is nice. And if I could have a little more enthusiasm in its voice, it would be better. But so yeah, these are just some of the LLMs, and it's just fun to if you're like me and you enjoy learning about this stuff, it is fun to go and sometimes put the exact same prompts in different ones and try them out and see what you get differently. And it can show you how they can both give you different answers, and one might be wrong one time and one might be right. And it's definitely worth just helping. Let's see here. Not clicking. Okay. So I went into ChatGPT and just listed in, asked it this exact prompt, and I pasted it in. And I said, can you list 10 ways AI can help the average person? And here was the output. And I do think one thing that I really have noticed in mine was, as I was even looking through this, is mine is really getting tailored to me because it's learning about me. So it knows what I do for a job. It knows that I have kids. And I've been thinking about that and the importance of when we're prompting to try and, especially if you don't want it to think like you and you want it to just be very objective, of that to be something to be really mindful of, because mine knows that I'm always trying to buy groceries. And so it was funny to me how much of it was like my to-do list for kids' schedules and my job and working out. And so, but it's cool to see this, because these are just really, if you haven't used it for any of these reasons, or if there's other things in your life that you are interested in streamlining, it's really an amazing tool. I mean, I even use it, make my kids after school checklists of what they need to do when they walk in the door, and it's get it out there and I print it off and I put it on the table for them and they're good to go. Or, sometimes just what I have left in my kitchen, to my refrigerator that needs to get used up. What can I make with this? And it can give you some ideas. And so, and even summarizing things, it can get the brainstorming ideas. If you brainstorming ideas, it's such an amazing tool for that. And so again, these are just a few ideas of the ways it can help just regular day-to-day stuff. Actually, I want to go back to one thing. The help kids with homework and explain concepts. I have had some really fun conversations with people about, especially, there's a lot of talk about how Common Core math was really hard for parents to adjust to. And I've had it help me. My daughter is still in elementary school, but she's getting to the math is getting harder. And I've had it to go in there and tell me, like, what are the steps she's supposed to follow so that I can help her better. So I'm not having her use it quite yet to help her, but I'm having it teach me so then I can go help. So it is it really is nice to have you help with some of those pieces. Okay, then I went into, can you list the top 5 industries and give 2 examples of how each are using AI? And it was fun to read through these because I really live in an education bubble at times. And so I want to make sure that I'm, thinking about the rest of the world too and how they're using it. And I mean, the healthcare, it would just be really interesting to hear more about that. But I do know that even just from my personal experience talking with healthcare providers, what they're doing is with even just transcribing appointments and types of things that can be really helpful for them for their workload, to streamlining it. But there's just so many different things happening in every industry. And this is obviously just a short list, but just a few, just a few ways, but so much of it's like this word personalization, so much personalization. So I'm curious. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what comes of that. I've noticed even with shopping, on like the apps, they'll even just now they're trying to say they can help you with like picking sizes out and stuff. And it's just interesting with, I mean, what we're going to see with like retail. And has anybody been driven in one of the Waymo self-driving kind of Ubers before? I drove in one. I rode in one 2 years ago in Arizona, and my husband wouldn't go. We were in Arizona together, and he said he was going to walk, and I said, "Well, I'm going to ride." And he was like, "That thing's going to have. What if it just takes off? What are you going to do?" I said, "Well, I'll let you know." So I went in, and it actually was. It felt very, very safe and secure. And I won't go into the whole story of it, but those types of things are really. I mean, they're coming, and if you start looking around, you'll see a lot of these larger cities. Now, I mean, I think Arizona is one of the first, but I've seen them in a lot more now since then. So a lot of different things happening. ethical concerns. So this is a piece that it gets really hard to, identify all the different concerns, because someone might see one as it could be a good thing or a bad thing, and there's varying opinions on it. So I just kind of want to put a few things out there, and which one we know we know it can be incorrect. A couple of other pieces just with the actual outputs in general is really being aware that it can have bias. And so I've been trying to really, if I know it's something that when I ask it, been really trying to tell them, explain it to me both sides of this, to have it look at both perspectives instead of it assuming that I want to hear it say one thing or another. And that's you might even see some jokes on, if you're on Instagram, like there's some jokes on like reels about how AI can be confirming a lot of things for people that maybe shouldn't be being confirmed. And so I think that's just that, to me right now, that's kind of a rising concern actually in my eyes, more than a lot of them, is just the bias it can have. And then even with when I ask it a question, it always responds to me like I'm a teacher or a mom, and I just want it to answer it. I just want a regular answer for anybody that would read. And so those types of things are just really important considerations. And even they lack context, which is why with our prompting, again, as I was just discussing, that they don't understand, it's not thinking, right? And I think it's really hard for us to just continue to grasp that it's not thinking, it's just predictive text. Okay, the environmental impact. This one has been really big, probably everywhere. So the data centers, I'm not even sure if I know the latest on any of the data centers, to be completely honest, but those are really big ethical consideration of it. Yeah, yes, we'll talk about that. The writing, but the AI systems, they require significant computing power. I actually even ironically, this weekend when I was generating this is an AI generated image, it told me I had to stop. It needed to stop so I needed an 11-minute break before I could generate another image, which I don't know what the 11 minutes significant was or anything, but it was just kind of so it's something that was using too much computing power. And then the data centers use large amounts of energy and water. And I think there is, I don't have the exact statistic, but there are statistics about what each prompt, all of that. And so it is really, there are sustainability concerns. And that's just something, again, I'm here to just help educate and create awareness of things. So that's something that is worth considering. And then policy and governance. So I was looking, this has been a really challenging piece and a really hot topic. So I would imagine, I'm curious, even in some of the private sector, those of you who are in more private sector roles, what the policies are in those roles, because I know at the university level, this has been really hard to navigate. And is it, instructor discretion, university level policies, university system policies, and then not only that, just then there's state laws. And so there's all these different components coming in. I know there are some around like the politics of they have to, if they're advertising or they're, if it's a promotional campaign, there's something that they have to put in there, like a disclaimer in the videos, but otherwise there's still not a lot of policy around it. There's a lot of frameworks and suggestions and guidelines, but there are some areas that we don't have set policies. And part of it that is really hard is it's hard to detect. And so it's hard to have a policy when it's hard to detect really if someone is in fact using this. So there is a need for clear expectations. And this is something that this is a really big struggle at the university level for us. And I'm sure at the K-12 level of every instructor feels differently about it. And then some are saying, yes, use it. Some are saying, no, you can't use it. and it's all happening so quickly. And this is why, Jerry and I are here today. Part of it is because we want to have these conversations with our students, everybody we can have them with, so that we can try to get on the same page about what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. And so we can kind of get to that point of having like with Google, now we understand we can't go type something into Google, copy and paste it, and submit that as our own work. And there are students who still are trying to learn that is something you cannot do with AI. So there are, so there's a lot of these discussions to get us on the same page. Is anybody, I mean, if you don't feel comfortable raising your hand or speaking up, but I'm just curious if anybody feels like they are in a situation where they have good policies set up in their workplace. Well, we'll go up from here. Okay, so another piece that's really a really important consideration is privacy. And this one is really, really important, I think, particularly to me with using, being an educator where I have a lot of student information available to me for students in my classes and my advisees. And there probably are ways that let's see here. Jerry, could you read that chat? I just saw a chat come in. Let's see here. Sorry. Yeah, that is a good question. That's a good way to put it. Would you mind raising your hand if do you have any governance or policies started in your workplace? Because we have them, we're working on them at VCSU. We have them, and they're still, and I would say in each class, they're still varying within that setting.
Yeah, and I see I was on mute when I was talking to respond to your question.
That's okay. Okay, so it looks like not a lot of policies made. And I'm sure it depends on, there's one, okay. I'm sure it depends on the industry as well. For us, it's just a really big deal because of academic integrity, and then also students having strong feelings about how their instructors should be using it. And so it's kind of on this both sides. We're trying to find this common ground of what's acceptable and appropriate. Okay, so with that, that's been somebody in here mentioned like the private AI that enables use of AI without the threat of consequence. Yeah, so something to even like with it. So we use Blackboard and so Blackboard has been developing their AI where that's where it keeps everything within Blackboard, and then it's better. Now it's more secure. You don't have to worry about those privacy issues. And the part that I've found, I actually haven't, to be honest, I was using the Blackboard AI when they were piloting it last fall. I went to a luncheon with Anthology and they were promoting it. And then I had reached out to our VPAA just to ask if I could pilot it and try it out. And I don't know the answer to this question. It's maybe more just something, I guess, another consideration. What I was struggling with it is that the real, Chat GPT, Copilot, Gemini, they're so much more comprehensive and the outputs were so much better. So it felt cumbersome to be using multiple AIs. So that's it. I'll be curious to see how the maybe smaller scale versions of them can improve over time, which would be really helpful with the even I just think about in our world, I think about like advising and that sort of stuff. If you could keep it within, Campus Connection or whatever it might be too, then you don't have to worry about any information getting out. So, but again, just really a lot of it's these like stop and think moments, just all of us, I know I'm going 100 miles an hour often, but stopping and thinking about like, the information you're putting in, making sure this is not anybody else's information. I have something about it too, where I'm getting annoyed a little bit that my chat GPT is figuring so much out about me, because I'm really trying to not tell it stuff about me, and it's got a lot figured out just based off of different questions I've asked. So I think that's where it's like just important to not be sharing any personal information, anything sensitive, uploading documents. Like, I think people just sometimes aren't thinking about the impacts that could have, and how it's just that stop and think, do not put that in there. Let's see, this next page going. And then that's where I'm getting ahead of myself. So just, asking yourself, does this make sense? Should I verify? That's our outputs, critically analyzing our outputs. Okay, so just with a raise of hands too, would you feel like you're comfortable with prompting, using an LLM? If you want to raise your hand, if you feel like you are, or if you're. So some. Okay, so this was something I actually did a lesson on with my peers at NDSU last semester, where we just kind of started talking about how we were looking at just how interesting, how important the prompt was for getting good output. And what we really were realizing, and you see this more now, is it's kind of good prompt in, oftentimes better output. Bad prompt, bad output is kind of, but then understanding, what does that mean? What's a good prompt, right? That's very arbitrary. So I did a lot of research on this and went to different websites, and just kind of, MIT had a really good website that they had a lot of information about just really introductory AI stuff that I had used in this particular class. But so I wanted to just kind of show you without having, I did this weekend without having to click back and forth on my screen, and I copied and pasted things to make sure it was nice and accurate for whatever, so everyone could see it. So I was just thinking, let's take, an easy concept or a prompt to give it, to show you how varying your output could look. And these are just ways you could, if you want to try this yourself after the fact, if you just give it a really basic prompt without providing too much context. So I teach STEM. So I put, can you give me a list of engineering design challenges? And which sounds like, okay, let's see what it comes up with. So here it's a lot. Sorry, I copied and pasted, so it's pretty small, but it just gave me this long list, kind of all over the board. It knows I'm really into Artemis right now. I was obsessing over the spaceship. Hopefully everybody else enjoyed it as much as I did. But so it was made me laugh because it knew it, because all of my first 5 are all like space related design challenges. And so, but then it goes into a bunch of others. And so, okay, you look at this and you think, this is a lot of ideas, but if I want to use this really purposefully, this still leaves a lot of room. Like, what kind of engineering design challenge am I looking for? So I teach, for example, I teach an integrated physical science class that's aligned with the next generation science standards. So I looked at it and I thought, well, what works is, it gave me a lot of really great ideas, but what didn't is, I am only looking for, I want them to be aligned with force and motion. So I'm teaching force and motion in that class. So then I went back and changed my prompt and put, can you give me a concise bulleted list of 5 engineering design challenges that align with NGSS PS2 motion and stability? And then I put that in there, and this is my exact prompt, or my exact output. And then it gave me these 5: a balloon powered car, marble roller coaster, catapult challenge. And then it showed me which standard and the benchmark it aligned with, and with a little description of it. So it was really cool to see how I was much more specific. I gave it better criteria, and how much better my output got. And that right there, even just thinking about this as a teacher for teaching students, how important this is, what a difference that can make in making sure you're getting good information out of it. Now, So these are kind of the steps that I've been using to share. You can get into the minutia of a lot of steps. If it's kind of like the engineering design process, if you're familiar with it. In elementary, we use 5 steps. And then as you get older and older, they can get up to 7, 9, 11. But I think to begin, these steps right here can be really just helpful when you're prompting. So being specific and clear, providing context, and then defining how you want it. Because sometimes if I forget to tell it how it loves to talk. It will give you the longest thing to read. And I think, no, I want this in bullet points. And I want just a list, a really easy list. And so being in other parts of it too that are in here, but when under specific and clear would be making sure you say this is for, elementary or whatever the type of how you want it to think, or give me a summary or give me a detailed list and explaining that to it. And the other piece of it that I love is the number 4 is the continue the conversation, because even after this, the nice part is then, so say I decide, okay, I want to do the marble roller coaster, and then I can continue that conversation the chat that I'm having and say, okay, I want to do the marble roller coaster. Can you list out what materials I would need? And then it can list those out. And then it might list 10 materials. And you could say, oh, I only have really basic household materials. And then you can say specifically, then it'll modify that list for you. So it can be really helpful that just get yourself, if you can get that original output looking really, good, then you can use your special touch on it to get to where you want it. And this is a lot what I'm doing in education is, if we know our standards and we know what we want to do, we can feed it and then we can build it and use our, I want this to be more geared towards, my class is very interested. They love painting. And then is there a way we could add in to paint a picture of this, or, something along those lines. So the prompting is just really, really important. I can't stress that enough. Okay. And then, so just a few takeaways. And I do want to address there's a few questions up here above. Sorry if you're hearing thuds. I have 3 kids in this house, so it's actually a miracle they haven't walked in this door. I have a 6-year-old boy who's normally just right here. Jerry heard him talk all day one day when he had to come to work with me. And so just the key takeaways, AI is a tool. You can get out of it. Like anything else in this world, there will be people that use it incorrectly, unfortunately. And I'm kind of taking the road of the more we can educate on how AI can be used for good and how AI can be used to help, then that is what will prevail. And maybe I have rose-colored glasses on or whatever it might be, but I think it's not going anywhere. So our best bet right now is to get as many people that want to use it correctly and responsibly and intentionally to understand it and feel empowered to do so, the better off that we will be. And so I can't stress that enough. And then just the input determines the output. So really thinking about what you're putting in. And this is just such a beginning step here. But then the more you practice with it, I'm starting to build them personalized by topic and kind of building them on my own for different ways that I would want to use them. An easy example would be my daughter wanted to build a dollhouse, and I built one that then she could ask it questions while I was working, and then it was really specific to this one project. So I put that one project, and it wouldn't go outside the LMM. It stayed just with this one document that I uploaded to it. So there's so much more to learn with it. And then that just again, what I said, that this can be really positive for our personal and our professional lives if we are learning how to use it effectively. And then understanding and having these discussions and listening to everyone's concerns and how can we address those, that can help us all be more responsible, and then also just be sensitive to what might be worrisome to others so we can be aware of that. And then lastly, just a little homework. So it was cool to see there's a lot of you that maybe haven't been using this a lot. So I will not be facilitating the next session, but I'll be joining. And I would just love to hear if anybody went and used AI just to try it out. Go, and if you're, feel free to reach out to me if you want me to send you which one to you think you should use, or whatever it might be. And if maybe you have used it, but you've only used Copilot or whatever it might be, I just encourage you to go try it out and type in a few things and see how it goes, and see how your prompt goes, and little things like just like your meal plan, or if your kid comes home with a really confusing homework assignment, see if it can help you understand it better, or even just brainstorming ideas for I sometimes, when it's still winter in April, when I'm trying to figure out what to do with kids all day long, help me with some ideas. What can my kids and I do today in the house? Because Sky Zone's $120 every time you go. So, so just little things like that. And then think to yourself, what went well? What didn't go well? And did you feel nervous? Did you notice errors? I mean, that's, I think, a really, some people don't like it, but I kind of like that it gives you mistakes, because it reminds us to be thinking critically every time we read it, to not just take it at face value all the time. So with that, I know there were a couple questions in here, and I know it was a lot of information. So thank you all for listening and participating. If you have any more questions, and here's my contact information. Again, my name is Lisa Crumwhitey, and I love, Jerry can attest to this, I love talking. So I will talk. If anybody wants to call me up or message me, I will drop everything and we can chit chat until my next meeting if you want to. So there was one question in here of about how will AI impact the original skills of writing and authoring. Jerry, this sounds a lot like one of the conversations we had when we had the panel at our spring training. Yep. And this is a really important topic, and something that I think needs to continue to be discussed. And part of it is, I can't think of who there was somebody I can see where the person was sitting in the room talking about those conversations especially with students, of, we want to hear what you think of this. I don't care what AI thinks of, analyzing this, or how AI writes this poem. I want to hear how you do it. And that makes it more human. As far as, a lot of things that I've read are really reiterating the importance of how, as humans, it's just, we thrive off of human connection and shared experiences. And that there is that element of, when we know a real person wrote this story, or they are sharing this personal experience with the world, and we can empathize with that is a really powerful, that's something powerful that a machine can never replace. And again, I know this is happening, where there's AI writing stories, writing songs, and I don't know if I have a really good answer for it, other than relying on telling everyone, you don't need to, especially in the educational setting, your work doesn't need to be perfect. That's what makes you human. And that's what makes this really important, is that you make mistakes along the way, and you're sharing your story and your thoughts, versus, great, we know you can plug that in and get a perfectly tailored response with rich vocabulary, but we don't want that. We want to hear your story. So I hope that helps.
Well, and if I could just jump in, Lisa.
Yeah.
We conducted some survey analysis at Valley City State this fall, surveying faculty, staff, and students about their perceptions of AI and their use of AI. And it was very interesting, very thoughtful responses. They recognize AI is here. The majority of the population are willing to use it, but they also were very guarded and wanted to be careful about, how they use it in an ethical way. It was actually, instead of just diving deep into the pool, it was thoughtful responses. And that was very impressive. Several years back, working with EduTech, we did some survey work about, what are they looking for in students that are graduating? And we primarily pulled IT organizations, IT people that are in the business. And I'm thinking, we're going to ask for more programmers, they're going to ask for more cyber guys, they're going to whatever. But what came back was they want the soft skills. They want people that have critical thinking skills. They want to be able to communicate. They want to be able to work in groups. Those are the humanities kinds of things that are front and center with somebody who's working on a 4-year bachelor's degree. So that's prior to AI. And now that AI is here, again, with the survey work that we did last fall, very front and center, top on the list was the ability to have soft skills, to communicate, to critical think, reason, collaborating with others. So that was the response back we got on campus, and it basically was quite consistent with some of the previous work that I did with EduTech on the employment skills that we're turning out for students. So
well, in line with that, with a lot of some of the, I don't know, fear mongering headlines you might see or something will say, well, is AI going to replace teachers? I mean, that's, again, my algorithm's probably feeding me that. And but part of it is my hope and excitement about it is that it's actually going to allow, I think it's going to allow teachers to do what we really want to do, and that's spend time, get to know our students and build those relationships. And when you have to spend less time trying to, in the guided reading library, pulling your leveled text, but when you can say, here's the text, and AI can, spit it out in 30 seconds at everybody's reading level. It does, that is a benefit where then now I can spend more of my energy on personalizing, getting to know what my students' interests are, and then creating experiences based off of that. So I think if you use it correctly, it can be used to make those human pieces of things more valuable.
Definitely. Bruce makes a comment, AI tends to add dashes, pipes that aren't typical of original authored content. And just to add to that point in a more broad perspective, I've interacted enough with AI where it has its own voice, and it's not the same as my voice or maybe Lisa's voice or any of you here. And it's so easy now to detect, that's an AI response. And just because it has its own unique characteristics. So I'd agree.
The AI detection platform, I've not heard much about this one. Is it boasting to be more accurate? I'm curious, because that's been part of the issue, is a lot of them are, when they do studies on them, they don't prove to be accurate enough where you could use it as your policy enforcer. It gives a percentage of likelihood. Interesting. I'll have to look that up and write that down and see what it's. Yeah, interesting. I'm sure it's a race. It's a race to the top of the mountain for that one, to be the one who can figure out the detection. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Lisa. We're about 2 minutes away from 7:00. A very good presentation. Thanks to all of you for joining. Remember, next Monday night, AI in Education at 6:00. Same link that you used tonight. And then the final week we'll be back and we'll be talking about AI in the workforce. So thank you all for joining us, and have a good rest of your evening.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody.